This is the Jupiter-Xm. Now, before we get into the sounds, let's talk about the build. The Jupiter-Xm has a premium metal chassis, a mini keyboard, and loads of inputs and outputs, including XLR outputs. It's actually very useful if you're on the road as well, because it has a built-in Bluetooth speaker that allows you to stream audio wirelessly, and it can also run on batteries. Let's talk about the sounds. The Jupiter-Xm combines our new zen-core sound engine with the model bank technology, which allows us to emulate anything from vintage Roland analog classics like the Jupiter-8 and Juno 106, even JX8P and so on, but also it allows us to emulate digital classics with PCM sounds. But we can also emulate our classic stage piano, the RD700GX, or as we call it, supernatural piano. So basically loads of sound design possibilities in there. Not only because of these different models, but you can also tweak your sounds, you have loads of real-time control, and you can layer them up to 4 parts. You can add a drum part on there as well. And we also have the zen-core engine itself. So this has a completely different character of the sound and can create anything from beautiful acoustic sounds to analog type synthesizers. All of this in one box is a really powerful synthesizer with loads of versatility. It can handle up to 256 voices depending on the type of synthesis you choose. And finally, we have a really nice effects section here with direct access to things like drive level, chorus level, delay time, reverb level, and so on. So let's have a listen to a few sounds. I currently have an expression pedal connected down here to make things a little bit easier when it comes to the filtering. Here is a classic style Jupiter 8 pad. And now we can quickly move over to a Juno 106 pad, so very similar style in the sound, but a completely different character of the actual sound engine. You can also hear the difference in the filter. Now let's try something completely different. We have a bass on the Juno 106 once again, and I've assigned some controllers here and also some layers. So for instance, I can simply start with a single Juno 106 bass. Because I have my assignable controllers, I can control the level of my layered JX8P bass as well. So if we go here, now that is the layer of my second bass, and actually I've assigned this to be the filter of my second bass. And the filter of my first bass is still on my foot, so I'm in full individual control of both sounds at the same time. And let's put some drive on the bass as well, on bass 2 there. So now we're in full control again, and we can play around. So that's some of the fun you can have with really plasticky, distorted bass sounds. Let's try something else. Now we can go into an SH101, kind of arpeggio, but of course this is a Jupiter-Xm and this is now a polyphonic SH101. We can also, of course, use these vintage sounds for more kind of experimental purposes. And I have a really nice effects section here, like I mentioned earlier. But we can also assign some of these effects to, let's say, the pitch and mod wheel. So we have the classic Roland DJ-FX looper, which I have now actually assigned to my pitch and mod wheel. And if you don't know, the DJ-FX looper basically takes a small portion of sound and freezes it and loops it, and then lets you also control this, the size of this portion of sound and the pitch and tempo. So let's have a listen to what that can sound like. So now I have a little frozen loop there, and my pitch wheel is actually controlling the speed and pitch of this loop. And this is really interesting when you start doing things kind of behind the scenes whilst this loop is looping. So, for instance, I can play a chord again, and now I can start doing things on the keys which you won't hear until I kind of bring them quickly in like that. So that's some of the fun you can have with the DJ effects looper and other types of effects that you can also assign to the pitch and mod wheel. Okay, so let's try some of the famous XV5080 sound modules. So really classic kind of sample-based PCM sounds here. We have a little voice pad. So a bit of classic XV5080 kind of vocal sounds, but we also have, of course, one of my favorite patches of all time, which is the Psycho piano. And that was a couple of the XV sounds. And now let's go for our classic RD700 piano. And we're gonna do a little bit of layering with this. So here's the piano by itself. And now I have assigned my slider 2 here for my layered pad levels, and we can just bring these slowly together. Okay, so that was the RD700GX emulation, and now finally I want to show you a couple of quick examples just using the zen-core engine alone, which is now not emulating anything. So no vintage emulation, no Jupiter, Juno, stuff like that, but just the JUPITER-Xm zen-core in itself. And maybe some kind of tremolo organ type style. And we can also add some big fat bass sounds as well. And we even have in the zen-core, we have a really advanced step modulator, which not only allows you to do step modulation, but also different curves on each step. So it could sound like something like this. Now let's have a look at something else in the JUPITER-Xm, which I find is really cool, and that is the i-Arpeggio. Now, the i-Arpeggio, of course, as the name implies, is an arpeggiator, but it has a couple of really unique features. And one, it will sense the rhythm you're playing and adapt the arpeggio rhythm afterwards. And the second really interesting feature with the i-Arpeggio is that it can actually distribute the arpeggio rhythmically across different channels. So for instance, you can have 1, 2, 3 sounds playing completely different rhythms or kind of canceling each other out in the arpeggio rhythm. I'll start very simple, just a single note, but you can already hear some things are happening, not much, but you can already hear the two different parts kind of interacting with each other a little bit. And what happens now if I play a slightly more intense rhythm? Now things are suddenly starting to move a little bit. We can change the chords, of course. And I can change the rhythm whenever I want by just playing a different rhythm. And then go back to simple again. That's one fun way of using patches like this. We can try another one. So here's a couple of synth sounds. Of course, as usual, we have our assignments here as well. So if I start playing around with this one, I can, of course, have my assigned filters for part 1 and 2. So this is my filter for part 1. And this is my filter for part 2. Let's try another one. This one is a bit more synthy. So I have my assignable controls here, as you can hear. I'm controlling the filter on part 1, and on this one I have the filter on part 2. And then of course, again, as usual, we can play around, change the chords. And as you can hear, once again, I'm also affecting the rhythm. But maybe this time I want a bit more of consistency in the rhythm. So what I can do is turn off the play detector, and now actually I just have to play chords and it will still keep this very same rhythm. So you can also lock it in a very convenient way if you want to too. And here is another one that also has 2 parts, but this one is a bit special because I'm actually using the DJ effects looper I was using earlier for the lead part. So this means for the lead part, I can actually, anytime I want to, I can freeze it and mess with it whilst the background, the bass, is carrying on. So let's see what happens when I do this. Okay, so I have my bass here as usual, with an assigned filter, and I have my little lead part with also filter assigned. So now the special thing about this one is I've assigned the DJ effects looper to the lead part, and I can freeze it or loop it and at any time I want to, like this, and then release it, loop it again and again. And we can change the bass now while it's looping. And then release the loop. And maybe I like the rhythm I'm currently on, so I'll just turn off the beat detection once again, and now the beat will stay the way it is. So that's some of the fun you can have using the DJ effects looper together with the i-Arpeggio. Now finally, let's use the i-Arpeggio and also bring in a drum kit. And the cool thing here with drums is that you have plenty of vintage Roland drum sounds in here, like CR78, TR808 and so on. And you also have numerous drum loops, so you can actually control the i-Arpeggio or the drum loop intensity as well in the same way I was doing before. So here is one of the presets, and again, I'm gonna start just very simply. Okay, so we're starting nice and easy here. I got my assigned filters as usual. I'll just play it a little bit faster and see what happens. Now we hear some more arpeggios coming in. Let's try to change it again. Yeah, got some hi-hats coming in, some more bass notes. Okay, so let's lock this, and then now, again, I have it locked to the beat, so I can just simply play chords and do whatever I want rhythmically, and it will always keep the rhythm. But now I want to be in control of the rhythm again, so I'll just turn on the play detector and go easy. Turn it off. And here's another example using some drums, a slightly different beat this time. Change the chord a little bit. And then again, we can lock the beat by just turning off the beat detector, and now it will stay wherever it is. And I can just simply play some chords and play around with the sliders again. So that is the Jupiter-Xm, and as you can hear, you can basically use this to create any type of sound you want. You got vintage analog sounds, vintage digital sounds, modern digital sounds from the zen-core engine, and even RD700 supernatural piano. So loads of possibilities in this little small box. And of course we have the super creative i-Arpeggio there, which allows you to not only use internal sounds, but you can of course send these melodies out via MIDI as well to your plugins or whatever you want. Also super portable. Again, we've got battery power, we've got Bluetooth speaker with wireless audio. Just a great studio tool and for on the road. I hope you enjoy the Jupiter-Xm. Thank you very much.